So it's the 20th of the 1st, 2020, and this upload is with regard to victim support. Um, this topic that I'm about to discuss in this upload is a little bit more difficult, basically because of how serious the circumstances are for me as a victim. With movements like He for She and the Me Too movement, that are espousing ideas of gender equality and the well-being and safety of victims that have suffered from assault. I'm wondering, how is it that I've not heard acknowledgements from them and women's aid groups as well, and the RCC. I'm a victim of the sexual assault I experienced in 2004 and 2005. On New Year's Eve 2005, an awful incident of sexual assault and assault happened to me on New Year's Eve 2005. That incident involved, you know, it was a difficult situation and not comfortable being discussed, but there were images photographed from that incident, and the individuals that were present while I was unconscious shared those images online, on social network forums and in magazines. I had qualified just 2 years since prior to that happening. So I was working as a teacher, and that incident affected my professional career. So I retrained and I got into primary teaching, and that was years later. And I also started training in fellowship work and studies. And as I've said in previous uploads as well, I started working in self-development and stuff. So basically, I got spiritualized, and I did it myself with the help of the fellowship. So basically, I hadn't any supports as such to overcome the incidents of sexual assault and revenge porn that occurred. The issues of concern for he, for she, and the Me Too movement and whatnot are all relevant for me as a survivor of sexual assault. The fact that I hadn't any supports or services available to help me at that time, but that I recovered anyway, was a positive learning experience. It wasn't a pleasant experience for it to have happened, but it was overcome and I moved on and I recovered. For victims in circumstances such as mine, it's very disheartening that there aren't professionals or advocates or volunteers that would be honestly willing to assist women experiencing difficulties. Domestic violence and sexual assault aren't easy topics to discuss, and certainly the consequences for the guilty culprits aren't easy to confront either. The broadcast online of that night and other incidents that I experienced was humiliating, to say the least. The individuals I'm fully aware of, um, and as I've said, I recovered and I forgave and I moved on. And I did that, as I've said, the help of my own work, my program and whatnot. Um, so what led prior to that event in 2005 was not pleasant, but what came from that event was beneficial. So it was a transition from darkness into light as such. And from 2006 onwards, when I decided to forgive and move on, and when I chose recovery instead of self-pity and resentments, um, that's when I started my own spiritual studies and found my own personal faith. Um, that is also around the time when I started progressing in light work and angelology studies. So for nearly 14 years, I've been progressing positively. Um, and then in 2014, I met my former spouse. In 2015, New Year's Eve, 2014 New Year's Eve, he proposed and we were married and had a child in 2015. Now, I've already given the background to that circumstance. But in 2016, as I've said, there were individuals in this community that commenced their vendetta. That vendetta commenced with very simple lies, but with very dangerous consequences, which involved a very serious wrongdoing that shouldn't have occurred. That wrongdoing has affected the victim and me, the mother. There have been other more serious wrongdoings, but with regard to what I've experienced as a physical and sexual assault over 10 years ago, the assault that I experienced more recently was a very serious spiritual assault. As I've said, it commenced with a very simple lie that exacerbated into a very serious wrongdoing in 2017. And for the past 2 years, there have been other violations other than the spiritual and religious and violations of faith. Those violations I've discussed at length, and the cause for those violations is hatred. There's been identity theft, there's been information theft, there's been financial theft, there's been spiritual theft. The issues that I've experienced in this community has been perpetrated yet again by the same individuals. They've made a bad situation worse, and they have really caused a very bizarre and outrageous situation, and they don't seem to see anything wrong with what they've done at all. I'm wondering, is it the hope of gaining notoriety with what they're doing when they've damaged and stolen from me? As I've said, my career, my marital home, my family home, my reputation, my family, my health has been affected Um, and the issue of spirituality has also been affected. As a light worker, I've been very seriously defamed, and I've experienced very serious violations. Um, as a victim of these people that have lied their way into a very messy situation that is actually quite dangerous and that has been senseless, shameless, and reckless. Um, the culprits have obviously no comprehension of the consequences for what has occurred. The interesting aspect of all of this as a victim is the nonchalance of guards and government. Um, what has been perpetrated and what has been facilitated is very serious and very dangerous. How I have been defamed and scandalized and humiliated is absolutely, I don't know what word would suit what I'm trying to express, but I know that it's absolutely indescribable that those professions of politics and public service and policing and whatnot that are meant to safeguard the innocent have not done so in my situation. Um, due to the fact that there are powerful, wealthy individuals that have swayed opinions and that have influenced a climate of change that is very dangerous. Um, there have been not only incidents of my character being defamed, there haven't just been the human rights violations. There's been worse than exploitation and financial abuse that I've experienced. Um, I've coped as well as any woman would after having given birth only since 2015. That's with having been deserted and having had to move to public housing or public accommodation with the harassment that I've been experiencing. Tralee is a small town, and they always have this saying in Ireland about typical Irish begrudgery. When a person's doing well, that's when, people start showing their claws. Um, I had progressed positively from the last incident of revenge porn and sexual assault that was perpetrated in 2004 and 2005. And I suppose that irritated people that are only consumed by their own hatred and whatever feelings that they have. But anyway, moving on from that, the culprits have yet again done worse. Except I'm not the only victim in this situation. Um, this is a complex issue with many intricacies, but getting back to the point of how there's been defamation and whatnot about me, I'm trying to pretty much put the record straight because when this kind of a popularity campaign is going on and it includes a vendetta of hate crime by guilty culprits trying to sway opinion and pull the strings and trying to manipulate a situation to their liking to achieve their gains and agendas. Um, the blatant and obvious tactic is isolation of the person that they're defaming and violating, in an attempt to prevent their target from knowing of their wrongdoings. Um, I don't know whether it's a sixth sense I have or not, but I've been fully aware all the way about who the culprits are and about the damage that they've done. I have contacted, as I've said, the ombudsman, the ministers, the politicians, local authorities, etc., etc., etc. And obviously, whatever individual is orchestrating this, assistance has been obstructed and the lies have been perpetuated. Tralee County Kerry has changed. Ireland is changing. To what extent, I can't fully say because any information I've sought has been withheld. And you can't always believe what you hear on the news and the radio these days. But I know that with all the defamation and exploitation and isolation and all these things that have been the tactics and the offences that have been perpetrated, the most serious aspect of this is that it's all been occurring without any consultation with me, just so as the individual responsible for very serious offences would be able to skive and dive from the damage being done. This issue is not easy as a victim to be describing. As I've said, I was married in March 2015. I've also got a child. I gave birth in October 2015. The incidents that I'm experiencing of people trying to formulate some kind of a civil society and trying to improve society to their liking and to acclaim that they're authoritarian and whatnot, I find quite questionable. 2017 in this community and 2018 was a different scene insofar as what was occurring. It's now 2019, 2020, and in that short space of time, there's been a very dramatic change. Positive or negative, it's hard to say because this vendetta isn't over yet. The complexities I'm not fully prepared to discuss, but I'm fully aware of the individuals that are causing me these problems. I'm fully aware of those that have defamed my character and damaged my reputation and my profession and my family life. And property or not, with or without, I didn't need to be married to be successful. I had already achieved with or without being married. Having been married, things have taken a different turn and things have become more dangerous due to people's agendas, as I've said, and they've endangered innocent lives and they've incriminated an innocent woman in a situation that she had no involvement in. spiritual violence against a member of the fellowship, spiritual light worker, etc., teacher, humanitarian peace campaigner, are all very serious. As I've said, there's also been the issue of an ancestral assault. So people going to the expense that they're going to cause me these problems due to hate crime, and the role of authorities and guards in this situation is very sordid. And that sinister and sordid are the only two words I'm able to use in this, because it's so serious that there's no regard for the damage being done, and that there are so many falsehoods being perpetrated, falsehoods being relayed to individuals that don't know any better about the circumstances that they're actually being confronted with. Um, Man's inhumanity to man in the European Union um, is one of the worst offences of the 21st century. Um, People that have involved themselves in this situation and that have not only violated the Declaration of Human Rights, but even more so, um, even technological privacy. You know, iPads and iPhones and laptops these days aren't safe. I merely use an iPhone and an iPad, and that's plenty because I'm not technologically minded. Um, you know, so even with regards to my technological data, I've noticed how it's not safe to even use technology these days. Um, so you know, that's one aspect. Then there's my living arrangement at the moment in public accommodation after being harassed from my marital home and my family home. Um, there's also, as I've already mentioned, the medical negligence that has occurred and the damage done to my body as well. Um, the threats by wealthy, powerful individuals that trample on people that have worked for what they've achieved is disrespectful. It's inhumane. It's it's just it's just absolutely shameless that people think this person is insignificant. We've gotten what we've gotten. We've done what we've done. Let's move on and just forget about it. Um, as I've said, there's an incident from 2005 that still hasn't been rectified. And there's a lot more serious incidents that have occurred between 2017 and 2019 that are also requiring attention at this moment. Um, as a peace campaigner since 2006, and that has worked as a humanitarian in Portugal, in China, in Cuba, in Germany, and you know, I find it really serious that the President's office and the Taoiseach's office have ignored what I'm experiencing. I find it very serious that a woman of 38 that is married legally and that has been deserted due to hate crime and due to other people's agendas, um, amongst other more serious issues. I'm very concerned that the Taoiseach has not acknowledged what's happening in Tralee County, Kerry. And I wonder, you know, with regard to spirituality and whatnot, and integrity and human rights and people's identity and things, issues like that, I'm just wondering, is it insignificant to destroy royalty? Is it insignificant to destroy an angelic light worker? Is it insignificant to destroy a mother? Is it insignificant to pauperize an employee, a former employee of the Department of Education? Is it insignificant to damage a person's reputation, profession, good name, and character? Is it insignificant to impose upon a woman that hasn't ever had any reason to have had these kind of experiences except for other people's, you know, bad behavior? Um, so I'm just wondering, at what cost are people doing this? Because as a victim, even local authorities that are aware, um, it's very sad. It's a very sad sign of the times. Injustice is inexcusable. Discrimination is inexcusable, and so is inequality inexcusable. Um, the lies that have been said in this town and county since 2005 are very serious, and things have taken a turn for the worst with how things are not really progressing at all. Now, as I've said, the town has changed, the community has changed, Ireland is changing, but building a country or community on such bad foundations, as I've said before, isn't boding positive for the future, because there's been very serious damage done and very serious disrespect shown to an innocent woman and family. Um, I've been scapegoated with other people's agendas that they've contrived, um, based on very dangerous lies, just so as to dispose of, and so as to, I don't know, trying to get a little bit of notoriety for themselves. But it's very worrying that such people have such short memories, because it was only back in 2018 when things were very different, and in only 1 year, people, certain individuals, have forgotten how bad the initial wrongdoing caused very serious upsets in society. So it's just been lies after lies in this that I've experienced. Ombudsmen have not acknowledged the wrongdoings I've experienced. Um, as regards faith, my faith is my business. There isn't any individual with any authority to involve themselves with regards to my personal faith. And as regards any other decisions, as a grown woman and an adult, and people perpetrating the wrongdoings that they're perpetrating, um, I'm wondering, have they any concept of what this does for the future? And have they considered what, how the past of Ireland has already been? And, past and present, you know, um, the climate of change and whatnot in politics, in society, leave an awful scar for future generations. Um, so those that are signing off on situations that they think insignificant and disposable, um, I hope have a full understanding of what they're signing off on, because I've already been violated and wronged in this town and county and country, and there are people new to this town, county and country that might not understand the situation properly. Um, the violations of declaration in a European country, um, we all know what law breaches are, and we all know what violations are, and we all know what wrongdoings are. And as a victim of violations and as a victim of wrongdoings, all of those come with a heavy cost of burdens that can't ever be rectified without proper, upfront, and honest communication. But there hasn't been any communication with me, and I've been wronged. And this situation that has been caused for me by guilty individuals with no conscience and with no shame and with no moral code, obviously, have no idea what damage they've done and have obviously not introspected enough to understand what could come from this kind of a situation. Um, the Constitution, Bunrucht and the Heron, is very straightforward. My constitutional rights have also been violated. Um, so this is what's happening in this vendetta of hate crime. There are individuals that have intruded and imposed and defamed and stolen from me. They've stolen so much, and there isn't even a shred of shame about it. So it just goes to show what I'm confronted with, and local authorities and politicians, the Department of Justice, think this is insignificant. This young lady that transformed from one horrible event in 2005, a victim of sexual assault, over 10 years later, is yet again a victim of another incident. The Department of Justice has a very huge responsibility for this woman that has complained about the wrongdoings that have occurred to me. That the Taoiseach's office, as I've said, and especially the President's office, that have ignored every violation that I've experienced and that has facilitated every lie that has been foolishly conveyed to just cover up the tracks. Insignificant. Doesn't bode good for future politics of this country. It's not a new Ireland at all, because it's not only how many decades ago when similar circumstances were occurring, and I don't know, are we still paying for that circumstance? So, as a victim, that the authorities are fully aware of what I've experienced. Are you facilitating the offenders, or are you protecting the innocent? Because I'm speaking on behalf of another one or two individuals that have also been very negatively affected by these wrongdoings. So there's a big failing in society occurring. There's a very huge deception that's also been, you know. So this is a dangerous situation. As a victim, I've not received advocacy. I've not received any victim support. But I have received a lot of false claims, a petty attempt by psychiatrists to put away and dispose as insignificant. As I said in an earlier upload, I'm just wondering, would the politicians that are disregarding and disrespecting me like to consider how expensive a royal light body is? Would they like to consider my loss of earnings since 2005? Would they like to consider the cost of my health? Would they like to consider the cost of my family that has also been damaged? So that's what this country owes me. And as regards the fact that there's this intrusion of psychiatrists, I'm baffled, because it seems to me there's mental health issues of others that haven't been rectified or addressed at all. Hence, we have this issue, a sick society where there's lies and denial, delusion and deception. So I'm very worried for everyone. I'm very worried for myself. I'm a victim since 2005 of these people that have only had the intelligence to lie after lie after lie, but no integrity to confront their wrongdoings and correct the damage that they've done. So that's the caliber of professionalism and respectability in this situation. So it would make one question about the level of propriety for the future Ireland. that there's been no consultation with me is very serious. There's no one else that's in any position to discuss anything about me without me, as they say in the Rape Crisis Centre in Dublin. But I'm able to speak for myself, but I'm wondering, why haven't the Ombudsman consulted with me about the wrongdoings that have been occurring? I'm wondering why I haven't been informed of matters that I'm fully entitled to be informed about. Um, I have a lot of questions, and I'm not going to get the answers driving around and stopping at traffic lights. This is a serious situation that only requires logic and rationale. And the fact that there's such an insane approach to the damages already done, with exacerbating it with even more dangerous occurrences of wrongdoings. Um, I resent I resent this country today for the damage that it has not amended for me as a victim of hate crime. I resent that the authorities have not prioritized my safety. I resent that there are psychiatrists intruding and damaging my rights. I'm in an awful resentful temperament, to be quite honest, because as an honest citizen that has worked with respect to others, um, I resent the bad play and foul play in this situation. It's sickening, it's sordid, and it's sinister. As a victim, not to be given the protection that I'm entitled to within my county and country. So it's an awful feeling to have resentments, but at least I can identify my resentments, and my resentments are justifiable because I've been very forgiving, I've been very forbearing, and at this stage now, with the people imposing and intruding and damaging my livelihood and my future with their inability and their lack of integrity, um, I think I've said enough. So there's a very big responsibility for the Department of Justice, because it's a very sad sign of the times, as I keep saying. And, you know, what is the cost of a royal angelic light body? Quite expensive. What's the cost of my career that's been damaged? What's the cost of my family and my homes and my property? What's the cost of my reputation and my good name and my health? I'd like Taoiseach Varadkar and President O'Higgins to consider what I'm saying very seriously, because I have been only working as a teacher for the betterment of all young people. Um, I've, as I've said, worked abroad and volunteered abroad, and this town has been absolutely malicious in its efforts to damage my future and my family. So, as a recipient of the President's office, I'm wondering, has President O'Higgins and Mary McAleese, that presented me my gold medal up in St. Patrick's Hall, any consideration for human rights of this woman? Or are the guilty offenders that are playing bad politics and bad tactics, and that are withholding information from me that I'm fully entitled to, are they going to, keep facilitating this injustice, discrimination, and inequality? Because as a victim, I'm entitled to better, and so are the other individuals that are experiencing similar offences and wrongdoings. So, for the town, county, and country that I loved, I'm very concerned about the lay of the land, with all these acts of injustice and defamation, etc. So, Taoiseach Varadkar, before any more injustice and wrongdoings are perpetrated against an innocent woman, humanitarian and peace campaigner and recipient of the Gashga Office, I'm wondering, would you mind considering this situation a little bit more seriously? Because playing with people's lives and violating my legal rights and my constitutional rights, and all that has been involved. Would you consider actually confronting the wrongdoings that hate crime has caused in Tralee, County Kerry, Ireland?